Is this the end of the Mugabe era?
Almost certainly. We were looking for something like this to happen, and there's obviously been a lot of pressure building regarding who is going to succeed Robert Mugabe. He's 93. He has a wife who's 52. And so the question was going to be, is her faction going to be the winner, or Emerson Mnangagwa, who was the vice president that was sacked last week and fled to South Africa?
Now, the question is this just ZANU-PF internal wrangling, or is this a genuine step towards democracy?
Oh, I don't know about that. I think it's a generational wrangle. And interestingly, unlike, say, in Saudi Arabia, this is one that's seeming to go rather backwards rather than forwards. The G40 or Generation 40 faction that surrounds Grace Mugabe seems to have fallen out of favour and out of power as a result of this, whereas the veterans, the old order, which is essentially vested in the army at the moment, seem to have regained the upper hand.
Now, Mugabe's clearly wrecked the economy during his time in power. What sort of man would Mnangagwa be were he to take office?
I think he'd be more practical. He's a tough guy. He himself is a general and has a bit of a reputation. But I do know people that say that they can do business with him. It's hard to think that it could be worse than Mugabe, but one shouldn't bank on that. But I do think that Zimbabwe has some deep economic strengths, mostly in its soil, and it shouldn't be written off.
As you say, very, very resource-rich country. And interestingly, after they formed the National Unity Government, GDP did start to pick up again, but that growth has tailed away in recent years.
Oh, very much so. And I think that's partly because the agricultural base was somewhat destroyed as a result of what was called farm invasions. And I think that if Zimbabwe is to recover, it needs to rebuild its agricultural side.
Yeah, I was looking at the numbers today. Wheat production, which was 320 million tonnes in 1990 before the farm seizure started, just 20 million last year. Can they rebuild from that?
Yes, they can. But they need the right framework, the right environment, and there's a lot of cleaning up to do before we get to that point. So I don't want to jump the gun, as it were. But I do think it is possible for Zimbabwe to rebuild.
And the really interesting thing is that the only people who really are prepared to invest from outside right now are the Chinese. I mean, the Chinese, have, to an extent, have helped keep the economy afloat, haven't they?
Indeed. I mean, Zimbabwe, of course, threw away its currency and adopted the dollar, which is, to some extent, the great Satan's currency. But meanwhile, as you say, the Chinese have probably been the #1 backer. I'm not sure that they wouldn't, although they would never admit it, approve of this transfer of power that's now taking place, though we don't exactly know who is going to be the successor.
And do you think, if Mugabe went, I mean, clearly we've had sanctions over the years in protest at what he's done. The IMF have withdrawn aid packages in the past. Would money come back in fairly rapidly were Mugabe to go, do you think?
No, I think they'd need to see some sort of progress and find out what's going to be the new order before that sort of money returned. But it's an economy which has taken a lot of shock in the last 10, 15, 20 years. And although it's obviously suffered, and suffered hugely, it's not fallen over.
All right, Michael Power from Investec. Really appreciate you joining me. Very interesting to talk to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ian.